Hi guys, and welcome back to another IBRACORP video. Absolute pleasure to have you guys back here today. Thank you for coming and checking out the channel. We really appreciate you. And today we've got a really exciting video for you, something we've been working on in the background for quite some time with our IBRA Beta team. Thank you to all of our IBRA Beta team and our admins for helping this one come together. This is episode 2 in our Authentik series. Now, Authentik is a beast of an application and can do many different things. But the most notable thing that we're going to show you today is getting it to protect your self-hosted apps using all self-hosted technology and making it easy to use. Now, we have the instructions for both Unraid and Docker Compose on our docs now finally ready, and it will be linked in the description below for you, so you can follow along depending on what you want to do. We've also given you the Docker Compose file and everything you need to know about it in our docs page. So you'll find that in the description below. Now, if you guys are fans of authelia, which we love authelia here, we still use it for a lot of things, and we're just starting to scratch the surface with Authentik, then you will love Authentik. And it does offer some other very notable features, depending on your setup, that you may be interested in. I'll make note of those as we move along with the video. As usual guys, if you like what we're doing on this channel, the videos we're putting out, please think about subscribing and hitting that like button. It really helps the channel a lot, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much for 15,000 subscribers. What a huge number. So the topic of today's video, we want to protect our self-hosted applications, something like Sonar, Radar, or Plex, with Authentik, so that all requests are redirected to it for authentication and then sent back. And we're going to show you 2 different reverse proxies to get this working. You'll be able to do it with NGINX Proxy Manager as well as Traefik. So we're going to give you both in one place right here, right now, as well as in the docs that we'll link below. So make sure you follow through and check out the chapters if you think you need to skip over anything, so that we don't waste your time, of course. A couple of assumptions. One is that you have Authentik started up and running. If not, like I said, we have the compose file there for you, and the previous video shows you how to get it up and running. You've logged in, you can authenticate successfully, and you've got Authentik ready to go. It's just basically just waiting there for us to actually use it. So without further ado, let's just get stuck into it. Alright guys, like I said, we're looking at the second step in our Authentik series, which is to use a reverse proxy to protect our self-hosted applications. Now, don't be confused. Authentik offers various different ways to both authenticate and authorize your requests and make them easy to use. So today we're only concentrating on the identity provider being ourselves, and of course it's going through our reverse proxy, which means that when we type in an external address like sonar.domain.com or whatever your domain is, that the reverse proxy forwards that request to Authentik. Authentik asks you to sign in, and then it's passed back to your reverse proxy. But there are other methods that Authentik does offer, and we will cover those in upcoming videos. For example, we can use OIDC or SAML so that we can authenticate with something and be single sign-on, which means we sign on to it once and it signs into those applications for us. If you want an example, Nextcloud is the perfect example. We can also use third-party providers to authenticate. So if you wanted to use something like Google or GitHub or whatever the case might be, we can try and use that method as well. But we thought, for the interest of most of our self-hosters, we want to keep that data in-house. We want it to be protected with our own knowledge, and we may only have 1 or 2 users that possibly could be affected by it. If you are running a very large business or something like that, you might want to look at some of the other options. But I think for most people, using a reverse proxy authentication is going to be the most common use case that we could think of. So I'm not going to go through all of this, guys. We did it in the first video. Feel free to check that out. Again, like I said, it's really important to give you some background, but here are some of the alternatives that you might see and some of the differences that Authentik can offer you. I'll leave that up to you to decipher however you like. We're just here to show you how to get it working. So without messing around any further, let's go to our setups and get this going. First and foremost, we're going to be looking at Traefik. So here we are in Code Server, and we're just looking at our Docker Compose files for Traefik and for Authentik. Now we're covering Docker Compose. We'll also show you Unraid in a moment as well. So if you are using Docker Compose, this is essentially what your Docker Compose may look like for Traefik. As you can see, we have our API middlewares, which is auth. Now that, if you're already using authelia, will already be in there. So you don't have to change anything there per se. I just wanted to show you, for example, And keep in mind, any of the tokens or anything like that, I've obviously changed, so nothing to worry about there. However, the one part you do need to take note of is the file config.yml. Now this is your dynamic file config, and it's the same whether you're on Unraid or on Docker Compose. And as you can see, we have our middlewares section under here. Under middlewares, we have auth. That's what we're referring to this as, which is where this comes from, auth at file. Now under there, this is the entry that we put. We have to put in this entire section from auth all the way underneath up until here. The rest of this is from our previous Traefik guides, so that is further explained in those guides, so you don't have to worry about that part. This is the part that we're adding, and we need to have it underneath middlewares. What you'll notice here is the name of our Authentik container. If you've installed our container from the Unraid CA store, your container may simply just be called Authentik rather than -server. If you're using our compose file, we've referred to it as Authentik server. So what we're doing here is giving it a certain name. That's the name of our Authentik container and the port that it runs on. By default, it's 9004 HTTP. So just update it to match whatever the name of your container is. This is assuming they're all on the same custom Docker network. If they are not, you may have to put the IP address of your server here instead. Now the next thing I'll show you is the Authentik Docker Compose file. Now this is a huge file, as you can see. For those who are not using Docker Compose, you still need to take note of one important thing, which is our labels. If we look underneath our labels, and if you're using Traefik, obviously, then you'll have labels for all your Docker setups. Now the next thing I want to show you is the labels inside of our Docker Compose for Authentik. Now this is for Authentik, not for anything else. So let's scroll down and we'll see the labels here. You also have labels there as well for Authentik. We wanted to go through Traefik, so we have our two standard labels, which is to enable it and which entry point we're using. Then we add this line underneath. Now this is, again guys, in our docs for you, so all you have to do is copy and paste it. As you can see, Authentik, that's the name of our rule. And then we're saying it's going to our domain. Now, if you don't want to use auth.domain.com, you might have authentik.domain.com. Whatever the case might be, you put that in here. That's what you want to use, that's fine, put that in there. In here, we also change domain.com. We do not change anything on this side, just leave that as is. And then we've got the prefix. Now, what this is doing is a two-step process. One, it's going to be attaching this to the end of each subdomain that is protected by Authentik, and also tells us where Authentik lives, so auth.domain.com. Now on Unraid, you would simply be adding another label, and that label would be, this is the key, and this is what you put as the value. So with those two changes done, we've added the label to Authentik, and we've added the middleware into the Traefik file config. We should be pretty much right to go. That's pretty much it from our Traefik point of view. Now we have to actually make the change in Authentik itself. But we're going to get to that later, because now I'm going to show you how to do this in NGINX Proxy Manager. Now, big warning for your eyes, guys. It's going to be a very white screen in just a second. Alright guys, so here we are in NGINX Proxy Manager, and you guys know that we're a big favorite of NGINX Proxy Manager. We do prefer Traefik these days, and there is very valid reason for that. It does offer us a lot of flexibility, especially when we're using Docker Compose. But for those who are still using NGINX Proxy Manager, we wanted to give you something to use as well. Now here at IBRACORP, we believe in community spirit, and as such, the guide for the Authentik and NPM section was actually written by a community member on Reddit. His name is It's Mevans, and we've given him credit in the documentation. He's given us permission to use his guide to walk you through this. So that's what we're doing right now. We've linked that all in our documentation as well. Now, basically, if you're going to here, we should have a couple of different proxies. Now, in your case, you may have 10, 15, whatever the case might be. We need to create one that is for our Authentik container. If we just click edit, we're using our host name. Now, this is the container name because they are on the same custom Docker network. Alternatively, put the IP address in there of your server. 9000 is the default port, so that's what we're using. We want to make sure WebSocket support is checked. You should also have another application in here as well that you know is working and works fine as it is. So if you were to click that, it would take you to your domain. And finally, obviously, that you have one set up for NPM itself. So you would have one here, for example, like this. And so we have our NGINX Proxy Manager reverse proxied as well. Now, similar to our authelia instructions, it's not too far away from what we need to do there when it comes to Authentik. Basically, find the app that we want to protect. So let's say Sonar. We'll select that and click on edit, go to advanced, and then you'll see we have this huge configuration that goes into there. Now again, this is on the docs, it's been linked and it's published by Geek Circuit, which is all there for you to take if you need it. And as you can see, all we have to do is customize some of the links. So we've got some of our links here that point originally to just the basic domain. We set that up to our auth domain that we've configured. And pretty much, if you just copy and paste that for each proxy that you need, you'll be right to go. So guys, that's pretty much Traefik and NGINX Proxy Manager set up and ready for us to start using with Authentik. So now that we have NGINX Proxy Manager and we have Traefik set up and ready to go, depending on which one you're on, you should be now ready to go with the Authentik side of things. So we've set up our reverse proxies. Now let's think about Authentik. So here I am on the sign in page and you can see I'm signing in with my username. And there we go. We're now on the dashboard. Now what we want to do is go to the admin interface. So let's go ahead and do that. Now on the admin interface, we're given a bunch of different information. This is all the stuff that we can now follow through and carry on to set up our applications. In your case, you're not going to have anything because you probably haven't set anything up yet. That's easy. So let's do that now. So let's say in our scenario, we want to reverse proxy Sonar. Let's go to applications, click on create and start filling it out. Now what we have here is the name. So we just call it Sonar, literally just Sonar. The slug for the URL is Sonar. And then the provider we need to create. So in your case, by default, it'll just look like that. Go ahead and click on Create Provider. Of the options, you can see that we've got at least 5 options at this point in time. Now you have a lot of different ways you can do this. Like I was saying earlier, we have LDAP Provider. So if you're using LDAP, that may be something you want to use. We have the OAuth 2 as well as OpenID. We have a proxy provider, a SAML provider, and a SAML provider using metadata. For the purpose of today's video, we're going with proxy provider. And as you can see from the description, it's if we're using a reverse proxy. So go ahead and click next. Now for the name, we can call it something like Sonar Forward Auth. The authorization flow will give you 2 options. One is an explicit consent and the other one is implicit consent. So basically, explicit means no matter what, it'll ask you to go to the login screen and ask you to confirm the request before pushing you over. With implicit consent, as long as you're signed in, it assumes that you're allowed and that you consent to passing through, so it will just pass you through. Now you can play between the two and change them on the fly and just test it out and see whether you like it. It's not going to break anything. So let's start off with explicit just so that we get confronted with that login screen. For the external host, we want the external address that Sonar is located on. For example, sonar.domain.com. So we put the fully qualified domain name into this field. There's one more step that you might be interested in though. Here I am on the existing Sonar one we've filled out. If I just go under Advanced Protocol Settings and we scroll down, you actually have a section called Unauthenticated Paths. Now, if you know from our video in Authelia, there are certain paths that we don't want to be authenticated. And the reason is they're our API endpoints or some sort of path that is used by automation. And so it's not going to be able to pass through authentication. So here we go. We have our API path, as you can see. Now this is taken from Authelia, but it's been changed a little bit to match the syntax required for Authentik. And we've put this list on our docs just to make it easy for you guys as well. Now this will allow all of our automation apps to work through the API and not get challenged by Authentik. It's really important you guys put that in there. You can ignore almost all of this if you don't want to use it, as long as you have the API endpoint open for Sonar and related apps. Every other app though has different needs. Now because this proxy provider is just for Sonar, we don't really need all this other stuff. We can actually just get rid of that if we wanted to, and just leave API as the only unauthenticated path. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave it as API and I'm going to click update. We've clicked on create and now it's added that provider to the list here. We can then select it. Now just be mindful, even after creating it, it won't actually select Sonar for you. So you just drop down the list and make sure you select it. Now scroll down. There's nothing else there unless you want it to. You can put a launch URL if you choose as well. It's not important, it's not mandatory. As you can see, if you don't put one in, it will use it based on the selected provider. And that's where we've already put a link in there, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Now that's all said and done. Pretty easy so far, right? The next step we need to do is modify our outpost. So let's go to outposts. Basically an outpost is, as the name probably suggests, it's a deployment of Authentik components to support different environments and protocols like reverse proxy. So you can have multiple different outposts if you so choose. And this may help with things like load balancing, for example. By default, you'll have the one Authentik embedded outpost ready to go. So go ahead and click on edit. Now, by default, none of these options are selected. In fact, if you haven't done the previous steps we just showed you, there will be nothing in this list. So we've created these applications and now we want to select them all. So we've selected them all, we scroll down, and in the configuration section here, there are some changes that you can make as well. I'm not going to get too much into detail here, but the most important part is the Authentik host. Now, as you can see, we've put in the address that matches all the other places we've put for the address for Authentik itself. And we need to make sure that's correct because after the pass-through is complete, it's going to send them through to this link. And if it's not there correctly, it's not going to work. So make sure you update that and you've selected the applications you want to protect with this outpost. Once you're done, click on update. Now, believe it or not, that's it. We've just now protected an application with Authentik. And let's say we want to test that out. So why don't I open this up in an incognito and we'll see how it goes. All right, so sure enough, it takes us to our auth page there. Here's our URL. It's redirected us on behalf of Traefik. We put in our username and our password. Now it presents us with the consent screen. Now this is what we were talking about before, whether it's implicit or explicit consent. And we've said explicit, so I need to actually give it approval to pass me through. So as you can see, you're about to sign into Radar. That's the name we gave it. The application requires the following permissions: email address and general profile information. I agree with that. Let's click on continue. And sure enough, we're into Radar. Now at any point, of course, we can go back to the Authentik domain name and it gives us our little dashboard here, which gives you a little shortcut so you can get to everything you need as well, which is pretty cool. If we go back to the admin interface, I'll show you a couple of other things as well. If you go to directory and then users, this is where you probably want to create another user. Now by default, the default user is the AK admin user. That's what you need when you first set it up, as we showed in our first video. Now after you do that, you may want to think about creating your own user account and start using that instead of the default. And that's exactly what we did here. So we click on create, you give the person a username, the user's display name and email address, and whether the person is active. We can then add them to a group. So if we click on plus, we can select the admins group. So that's the default group that's in there for admins. We can select that. And then you can put any other attributes in there as well using YAML or JSON. This is all explained in their docs, by the way, so we won't go into too much detail on the attributes, but they are quite flexible if you wanted some more control over the users. Now, something that actually took me a couple of sign-ins to get was how to set the password. And then all of a sudden it just clicked. I just had to drop this down and then we can actually set a password on the user. Helpful little tip there. Save you logging in and out like I did a couple of times. Whatever helps. Now, also just wanted to show you guys who are using Unraid. If you're using Unraid, then you're adding these labels manually rather than Docker Compose. So to do that, you just click on the Authentik container you have, click on Add Label Path Variable, and obviously choose label at the top, give it a name, there's the key that we want to put in, and there's the value. Now again, this is on our docs for you, so you literally just have to click and paste them, and you'll be right as rain. And finally, on your admin interface, you have a whole bunch of information to help you keep track of what's going on, any failed logins, whether your system is out of date, any warnings you need to know about, etc. So you have so much details there, which gives you a lot of insight into what's going on with your setup. Especially useful when we come to multi-users. So guys, believe it or not, that's actually it. We've now reverse proxied our applications and protected them with Authentik. For now, I think that'll get most of you on board and get you started using Authentik to protect all of your self-hosted apps using your reverse proxy that you already have running. It's going to make your life a lot easier. If you don't have NGINX Proxy Manager running, we have a video on that. That'll help you set it all up. We also have a video on setting up Traefik. It'll get you right from start to finish. I'll make sure I drop those links down in the description for you just to make it easier. I highly encourage you guys to check them out if you don't know enough about them and see why it may or may not be a better option for you. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I've been so excited to get it out. It's really, really cool to finally have this working and being able to share it with you, of course, as well. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Authentik and whether you'll be willing to give it a go. That's it from me today, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you in the next IBRACORP video.